Okay, welcome to video number 7. Now, these videos that I've been doing are totally unedited. I could edit them. I could edit out all my filler words, silences, and stuff that kind of like this doesn't make sense. But that's okay. I don't want to spend my time at this point, spending time in editing videos because it just takes too much time. It's too much to learn. Heck, I have to get a new video cam for my sim rig. I have a little notebook uh, webcam that all those videos that are in my channel are from that notebook webcam. And you can tell the quality isn't good, the sound's not good. It sounds actually half decent because it comes from my headphones. But I don't want to spend my time right now learning how to edit. Maybe down the line, if I continue doing this and making videos, I'll do some editing. However, this isn't the time to start doing it, and most of all, start learning it. It's just going to take too much time. All right, so in my first 3 videos, I talked about the 3 things that I'm not going to focus on. The first 2 videos after that, I talked about things that I am going to focus on. And in this video, which I'm really excited about because it's a lot more philosophical, and it has to do with my approach to not only sim racing, but other things I do in my life. Okay, so all these different things that I do, okay, including sim racing, is I guess what you would call your outer purpose. Okay, and it's very easy to measure. Other people can see what you're doing. You can compare yourself to others, and that's all fine and good. However, I think that has limited me in what I can do and what I'm able to do. So this might fall in the lines of, people say, get in the zone, or enjoy the journey, or use the process, or trust the process. However, that stuff, those sayings never really worked for me, at least for the long term. So I'm going to put all those things and label them as my outer purpose, like the sim racing is part of that. However, how I approach these things is what's going to change. And that, I guess you could say, is more part of what's called the inner purpose. Okay. And that inner purpose is something, it's hard to explain. I'm not going to get into specifics right now. However, you might be asking, well, what is an inner purpose? What is your inner purpose? Well, so if you separate, let's say, let's just look at the sky, okay? You have the blue sky, and all the clouds are your thoughts, okay? Those thoughts is what most of us think we are, okay? We think that we are those thoughts, whether they're beliefs, values, your identity, you think that's who you are, okay? And for my whole life, which is fine, it's not wrong. It's who I thought I was. Like, I was a music teacher. That's a thought, okay? And that was my identity. Right now, I'm not a music teacher anymore. So lots of people, when they're in my stage of life, that they lose their identity. And my identity is never going to be a race car driver, even though that's a wonderful thought. It'd be great to be a race car driver, but that's not going to happen. So all those things are thoughts. They're like clouds in the sky, and they're passing. Another example is when you're sitting on the grid. I'm sitting in my rig, the race is about ready to start. I'm waiting for the green lights, and the body starts to, build up that anxiety as to what's going to happen when the race starts. And that is a result of those thoughts, okay, that are passing through those clouds, all righty? So what I have been doing is, rather than being those thoughts, I am observing those thoughts as like something separate. Like, that's not me. I am the observer, or the awareness of those thoughts. And that has been very calming and different from the way I would normally think. So Another example of when you're not aware of what you're doing is this whole digital drift. You're sitting in front of your laptop, and I've done this, you can spend the whole day going from internet website to internet website, news site to news site, looking at Amazon, looking at all that stuff, and you're basically unconscious as to what's going on. It's wonderful because there's no responsibilities and there's no stress. However, when you're done, you're like, where did the time go? And the day is done, and you lost a day forever, which is fine. I'm not going to get upset the fact that I've done that several times. However, moving forward, I'm going to focus more on being aware of those thoughts and come from that new angle, I guess. And I've been also applying that to other areas of my life. And what's been great is this, we all have at least I do, I have about 4 of my favorite authors that I've followed probably for the past 10, 15 years, okay? I've read their books. I'm familiar with their teachings and their philosophies in this specific area. I have one for finance. I have one for business. I have basically 2 for life purpose coaches, maybe even self-help, you could call that. And I have another one for, I guess you would call it communication, okay? And I can use AI, and this is wonderful. This is something, I just basically discovered in the past 2 weeks. The first week, first couple weeks, I would just kind of like explore AI, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini. And, I started asking questions, trying to get a feel what you can use it for. And then I started this. I started taking my favorite authors and asking the AI to answer in the style of that specific person. And you might be saying, well, don't trust the AI. They might come back with the wrong thing. That's true. You can read any book and get the wrong interpretation from it. You get to have 2 people look at the word dog and they both come up with a different definition. So I understand that part. However, when I ask the same question and in the style of each of these authors, they all come up with a different answer based on how they look at life. And that has been eye-opening. It actually gives you a glimpse into what a conversation might be like if you were to actually ask that person in person. So that, every morning now, as part of my morning routine, is I spend some time and like I did in my career, I have a morning meeting where you sit down, talk about your schedule, ask them questions and see how they respond to those questions. And then you go on from there. So when it comes to my sim racing, I bring that same new way of looking at life and dealing with thoughts and how that applies to my racing. So I always wanted to become a better sim racer. There's nothing that hasn't changed. That's probably not going to change for a long time. But when I come to sim racing, putting together a schedule, not having to get caught up in my thoughts has been it kind of opens up a floodgate where I do it. And there's no questions. I don't get as upset. I'm not as inconsistent. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be any less inconsistent. I may be more consistent. This may cause me just to drop sim racing totally. I don't think that's going to happen because there's too many things outside of sim racing that I enjoy that I have to do with motorsports. So that's probably going to stay. So I need to edit this video. If you're still watching, thank you. This was video number 3 in the second set of things I'm going to start focusing on in my sim racing. The first 3 were 3 things that I'm not going to focus on anymore. And the one before that was kind of an introduction. And my last video is just going to be a review of everything I talked about. Again, thanks for watching.